What's up guys, my name is Mil. I'm a college student who loves reading and I'm here to share that love with all of you. So I can now consider myself a world traveler. I've not traveled as much as I would like to, but I have been to 3 continents and 5 or 6 countries. And again, I'm telling you that's not a lot, but those countries being across 3 continents definitely helps me with the notion that I am a world traveler. Now, I am someone who just loves how diverse our world is. You know, obviously that's the bare minimum, but I believe that it is something that I focus on quite a lot and something that I want to permeate throughout most parts of my life. For example, if you don't know me, I'm a Korean major at the University of Washington right now in the hopes of becoming a Korean translator once I graduate college. I spent this past summer, going to Yonsei University, which is sort of the Yale of South Korea. It's the second highest rated university in South Korea, where I furthered my studies of Korean language and culture. And while Korea is the one country that I focus my interest on, I have been a lover of culture since I was so little. I will show you a slide that I made for a fundraiser I did for my study abroad trip, but these are just some of the things that I was super interested in when I was a kid, from a toddler all the way up until now. So as you can see, there's stuff like picture books that are about ancient cultures, Lift the Flap, to see how people lived in a different area of the world in a different time. You know, I wrote my name in multiple different languages and I used Google Translate when I did, so they're probably not very accurate, but that is just how it was written out. BTS sparked my love of Korea, but I had loved learning about cultures like Japan and China before that. I had a phase where I was super into Egypt. I had a phase where I was really into Greek mythology. I just love exploring the world. And you know, being a broke college student, not being able to travel that much, a great way to discover the world is through books. If you can see through all of these videos that I'm showing here, I think you can see that there was an effort to explore the world through books. And recently, I know I'm late to the game, but recently I saw that Jack Edwards had been doing a series where he is trying to read a book from every country in the world. And I went, oh, I want to do that. And so I quickly created a spreadsheet. I looked at all the books in my personal library. I looked at the books that I had read and didn't read and saw if I could input any of them into my spreadsheet. And I was very disappointed in myself. I really thought that I was well read. I really thought that I had read literature from a lot of different countries, but counting it up, I had only read literature from 8 countries. 8 countries. How? I was so shocked with myself. I was like, I'm well read. I read from authors all around the world. I've read books about every continent. Of course I have. But then I really went to look at it, and the truth is, most of the books I read are either from the United States or the United Kingdom. English-speaking cultures that have brought me books in English. Most of the other ones are places like Australia, Germany, and Japan. Pretty prominent countries within cultural talking spaces and within the amount of impact they have had on the world. You know, you hear a lot about Germany, you hear a lot about Japan, Australia, the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada too. I have read books from Canada, but most cultures I was pretty disappointed in myself. Don't get me wrong, I have read from more countries technically, but I don't really think I would count them for one reason or another. We'll get into the rules later. This video is definitely going to be one where I'm explaining more about what I am planning to do. We're going to start this journey with me explaining everything, and then as the videos go on, it will mostly be just about telling you which book I have gotten from each culture. Now, there are some things that I have taken into account when it comes to choosing the books that I did and choosing not to include certain books that I have read that may be from a completely different culture and written by people in those cultures. However, I just am not including them. For example, fairly ancient text, for the most part, I'm not using unless I was like kind of really in a pickle and needed to read like very old text, like hundreds and hundreds of years old. I would say before probably the 15 or 1600s, because I think that I would include, because back then countries were actually a lot more established compared to how they were before that. Countries like England had already had hundreds of years to develop, that kind of thing. I just didn't want to include texts like the Bible, for example, because that is spanning thousands of years, so many different authors, so many different experiences in different parts of the world, anywhere from Rome to Ethiopia, that kind of thing. So that I just wanted to take that out for clarity's sake, just to make things easier. I also am not including things like Arabian Nights or Sejarah Malayu, both of which I have read in full, but those are talking about cultures that are now ranging across many countries, and I wanted to make sure that I was finding literature from each of those countries. So I opted not to add those in my quest to read around the world, even though they technically are from different parts of the world, Southeast Asia and the Middle East respectively. I also am really, for the most part, trying to find fiction and literature. I have made a couple exceptions. There are some non-fiction books on this list. However, I really tried to stay away from non-fiction because there truly are memoirs from everywhere in the world, and there are experiences that people have had all over the world, and I want to research those and I want to understand the history of those. However, I really wanted to focus in on the literature, and I really wanted to focus in on writing as a medium to share art, even if that art does end up having a historical meaning, a political meaning, some sort of social meaning, that kind of thing. Because books are powerful, books are political. There is so much you can say about the depth of that. However, I just wanted to know how people around the world told stories, and fiction is the easiest way to find plenty of those stories created in a narrative way. That being said, the few nonfiction books that are on this list did seem like they were things like narrative memoirs, so I'm not reading history books to check the box off the list. I'm not reading textbooks, anything like that. I am just reading books that bring a narrative story to the reader. I also just want to make the disclaimer up front that I am going to read from every nation that is recognized by the UN, the United Nations. I have also chosen quite a few territories that I believe hold enough cultural, social, political, etc. significance that they should be included. Maybe I think that they should be their own nation, I think they should be their own country, or they operate as their own country and the world kind of treats them as their own country, that sort of thing. Think about places like Greenland, Puerto Rico, and Palestine. That being said, like I said, I am reading from every United Nations recognized country. I understand how complicated and how nuanced the talk around many of these nations are for many different groups of people. However, I am only focusing on the literature, I am focusing on the art, and while, yes, reading and writing and storytelling can be inherently political, I am not going to include or disclude any country for the sake of political reasons. Art is complicated, and so is life, you know? So while I understand the importance of keeping up to date with world politics and understanding what is happening in the world around me, I would like to gently separate a lot of that turmoil from this reading challenge, because let's be honest, the writers of most of these books are not the global superpowers or the violent or otherwise tumultuous nations that we see in the world. Like, I'm gonna be reading a book from North Korea. Obviously, I'm reading a book from every country in the world. No country will be excluded. Understand that I am approaching this challenge with nuance, but I really just hope to read from every country in the world, and that is 186 countries total. So it is a long, big dream of mine. It is a bucket list item to read around the world. I don't know when I will finish this, but I am going to try my hardest to do it in my lifetime. I guess with that being said, I will tell you what to expect. We will start with Europe, and then we will go to Asia, then we will head to Africa, and then North America, and finally, because there are only 12 or so nations in each, we will see South America and Oceania together. There is no reason that they are together except for the fact that there are so few nations in each continent. That's it. I am so excited to share this journey with you. If you want to share this journey as well, I will link all of these resources that I have found for them below. There is a spreadsheet that is made by these creators right here. There is Jack Edwards videos. I believe if you are anywhere near the booktube space, you know who Jack Edwards is. And there is a Read Around the World website, which I will also link below. This project, I believe, is the longest that I have ever worked on a video. Just finding the books took a week and a half alone, and then I divided each book by continent. I have meticulously found summaries for each of them, and now I will present all of these books to you. I hope that this perhaps inspires you to read around the world, or at least actively choose to find some books in a country that you are unfamiliar with. I am so excited to start this journey and to share it with all of you guys. And with that, I will leave it. So without further ado, this has been Moo. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.